my name is Helene and today I'm here with my July wrap-up part 2. I did do a July wrap-up part 1 which I will link down below if you haven't watched it already. But for now, let's talk about the books that I read during the last 2 weeks of July. Now before I get started, I do have a short announcement to make, and that is that I'm going to take a short break from BookTube. Not a long break, just a little bit of a break, because I feel like it. I mean, I don't know. I've just been in a weird mood lately and I feel like I need to devote more time on myself and other things besides from BookTube. So in case you're wondering why I won't be as active in the next month or 2 months, then that's the reason. I'm perfectly fine, I'm perfectly happy, but I just need a little bit of a break, and that's what I'm going to do. I do have some videos that I need to film within the next couple of months. I do have an unboxing video, not books, but something else that is very interesting, and also some review books that I need to review. But other than that, I just want to focus on myself and spend more time doing other things besides from creating that many videos. At least not as many videos as I have been doing in the past 2 years. So I hope you can deal with that. I will be back again full time at some point whenever I feel like I've had enough of taking a break. Let's get started on the books that I actually read in July. The first book is a very interesting one, and actually let me just tell you, a lot of the books that I'm going to show you today are books that I've rated 3 stars, but I've loved them. And you need to understand that about my rating system. When I rate a book 3 stars, it's not that I didn't like it, I absolutely liked it, but for me to give a book 4 or 5 stars, it needs to hit me right in the heart. And that wasn't the case with many of these books, even though I do appreciate the story a lot and I would recommend them. That was a long introduction to the first book, but here we have it, The Fountain Overflows by Rebecca West. I rated this one 3 stars. It was beautiful. It has a lot of similarities to Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. So if you enjoy that story, then you might definitely enjoy this one as well. This is about 4 siblings, 3 girls and a boy, who live together with their mother. Their father is quite absent, so it's upon their mother to raise them and live with them and make everything work. As you can hear, it resembles Little Women a lot, but it's still very different because this one doesn't contain as many morals as Little Women does. It's more about their lives and their personalities and how they grow up and become these individuals that they are. It was highly entertaining and I loved it. It also has a very beautiful Christmas scene in it, which I always adore, but it didn't hit me right in the heart. I didn't feel like this was absolutely extraordinary. Maybe because I've already read a similar story, but still it got 3 stars for me. Next I read Villette by Charlotte Bronte, which I read together with some booktubers, and I really enjoyed that experience because we got to discuss it while reading, and I enjoy doing that. This one is by an author whom I really admire. Jane Eyre is one of my favorite books of all time, so I was very interested to read this one by Charlotte Bronte herself. It is about a woman named, I always forget their names. This is about Lucy, who lives in England, but then one day she decides that she wants to break free and she wants to become independent and go on an adventure. So she goes to France and she finds the village of Villette. That's where the story really takes off. This is a book about her growing up and meeting some new characters in life and dealing with these new relationships. And it's kind of hard to explain, but I really enjoyed it. I ended up giving it 4 stars. Now, the thing that I love the most about this book is that Charlotte Bronte surprises the reader over and over again, as she does in Jane Eyre, and I love it. I think it's a common trait of hers, and I absolutely love it. So even though I was quite skeptical at some of the surprises in this book, I ended up really enjoying it and how it wrapped up, so 4 stars from me. Next I read 2 books by Kazuo Ishiguro. I've never read anything by him before, and then I read 2 of his books in a row because I wanted to. The first one is The Remains of the Day. I love this book. This was pure perfection. I rated it 5 stars. I was not in doubt. I love this book. It is about a butler who decides to take off some days from work and visit a friend of his, and that's it. But it's so beautiful because it's also about his life and his work, what he has experienced in the past and what he is experiencing in the present. It has some interesting writing methods in it. I'm not going to go too much into that, but I was surprised when I read it, and I loved discovering these hints that are given in this book, and I just really liked it, so 5 stars. And the next one is Never Let Me Go. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this story because it's also been turned into a movie. It's very famous, it's a dystopian, and obviously I wanted to read the book. I have watched the movie and I loved it, so I was curious. This is about 3 teenagers who live a very different kind of life. We know from the beginning that they live a weird life. Something is not ordinary, but we don't know what is happening until later in the book. It is a dystopian, as I said, so it is quite disturbing, and I also think it's very relevant to our lives today. I gave this book 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think the message is very important and you need to read it just because of the message. But it didn't hit me straight in the heart. I think it's because I already knew the story, so sometimes when I read a book where I've already watched the movie, it kind of decreases the reading experience a little bit for me, so maybe that's what happened with this one, but I still highly enjoyed it. Next I read Through Black Spruce by Joseph Boyden, which is set in Canada, and I love that. This is a story taking place in present time. We follow some characters, but basically we follow Suzanne and Annie, who are sisters. Suzanne has disappeared and Annie is left behind in Canada. And then we hear about their lives, but also about some other characters who become very important to the story. I like this book because it messes with your mind. In the beginning you have no idea where you are, what is happening, but you do get some hints. And then in the end it all wraps up beautifully. Now I gave this book 3 stars. I loved it, but it didn't hit me straight in the heart. I keep saying that, but that's what I feel like. I think what I love the most about this book is the descriptions of Canada and the nature of Canada, because they were spot on and I felt like being in Canada and I loved them. And the story in itself was also very interesting, especially because it also takes place partly in New York and in Montreal, which is also part of Canada, but it's in the French part of Canada. So it was highly entertaining and educating. So 3 stars for me, I definitely recommend it. Then I read books 2 and 3 of the Rainwild Chronicles series by Robin Harp, Dragonhaven and City of Dragons. I rated both books 3 stars. I love this fantasy series just because it's so easy to understand, it's entertaining, it makes me happy, and I like reading about all the characters. So yeah, so far I've rated all 3 books 3 stars. There is a 4th one which I plan on reading soon. I don't know when. I feel like I've already talked about this series a lot on my channel, but very briefly, this is about some dragons who need to be transported from one place to another by humans, and then that affects the humans and the dragons and their relationships. So that's interesting. I also read Go Set a Watchman by Harper Lee. I'm not going to talk much about this book because I did a full video review of it, which I will put a link to down below, but I gave this one 3 stars. I did have some mixed feelings about it, but all in all I really admire Harper Lee's writing style and way of telling a story. And the very last book is the book I'm currently reading, and that is Far From the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. Now I only have about 40 pages left of this book, so I'm going to talk about it now even though I haven't finished it. But if you want to know my complete thoughts on it, once I've finished it, then I will put a review up on Goodreads. This book is about a main character called Bathsheba, which is the most ridiculous name I've ever heard. I'm sorry if I'm offending anyone, but I've never heard of that name. However, this woman is, attracting a lot of men. Basically, we hear about 3 men in the story who admire her and love her and want to marry her. And she just keeps on pushing them away because she wants to be independent, she wants to have a say in this, and she doesn't want to be like every other woman who just says yes and become married and have children. She wants to be different from that. It's very interesting. I mean, sometimes I don't really like that Sheba, the main character. I feel like she is very unorthodox, which is not a problem of mine, but she's also unlikable at some points because she just does these cruel things to these men. But at the same time, I absolutely understand her because we are all like this at some point in our life. So we cannot be perfect. So I like how this main character is not perfect, but yeah. So I do enjoy this book. So far, I think it's going to be a 4-star book for me because I think it's so interesting. It's very descriptive, I have to say that. So if you like that, then this might be the author for you. I have heard Thomas Hardy is quite fond of describing things. But if you don't like a lot of descriptions, heavy descriptions, then you might not want to pick up this book and just watch the movie instead then. But all in all, I really enjoy it. I will have to finish it and see if the ending is to my liking. And if it is, I'm sure I'm going to give it 4 stars. That is it for my July wrap-up part 2. I will be back eventually with an interesting unboxing, not books, but something else, so look out for that. But until then, have a great day everyone. Thank you so much for watching and supporting my channel, and happy reading. Bye bye.